Welcome one and all. The temperatures may be dropping, but the old world is heating up. War for the Old World 15 from the TSN Arena finished merely a small number of hours ago, and immediately we're going to fly into this report while it's still fresh and straight out the oven. There's steam pouring off the game still, and you're going to get it piping hot to your senses via the internet right now. So, 2,000 points. What do you get in a dwarf army for 2,000 points these days? Let's have a look. There you go. That's what you get. We have got, for the first time, the debut of the second Shieldbearer character. So we now have 2 available, and also the debut of the official model Burlock Daminson. I don't think he's appeared in a battle report yet. May also be the debut of the extra arms I've added for this guy. Magnetised a gun and a banner, so he can actually be a real BSB with a handgun. And if you're familiar with Dwarf lists, you may have a sneaking suspicion what upgrades that one might have. So, let's go through it all. We have, first of all, Burlock, right there, the only named character, who is not the general for once, and he's going to go into a unit and prevent them taking any penalties for shooting at long range. And then also, occasionally, he can let the Thunderers reroll 1s to hit if he happens to be close enough to them. It's very unlikely he's going to go in that unit, but you never know, it could happen. Then we have got a king on shield bearers. This king has a great weapon, a shield, Rune of Fury to get 1 extra attack with that great weapon, and the Master Rune of Adamant for a toughness 10 king with 6 wounds. So there are certain things in the game that just cannot wound something that's toughness 10. So I suspect any monsters will not want to charge into the unit he's in, because even the big scary dragons are going to be wounding him on 6s. So unless you've got something coming in with Killing Blow that just needs to get 1 wound through on a 6 to kill him, then I think they would be hesitant to attack him with his toughness 10. And there's also the option of him just running around on his own as well without a unit, because even certain cannonballs wouldn't be able to hit him very easily, or wound him very easily, should I say. Then the other Shieldbearer mounted character is a Thane, the BSB, who is armed with a handgun and a shield, and his handgun has the usual combo: the handgun Thane of Doom, Master Rune of Bursting Flame, Rune of Rapid Fire, Rune of Accuracy. So 2 shots, they always hit on 3s, and they explode into multiple hits, 2d3 each. He's also got the Master Rune of Grungni for the ward save banner, 5+ ward for the unit, and a Rune of Battle on there as well. So he's actually more expensive than the King, even though the King has a 100-point rune on his armour. This guy is still more expensive. So they're round about the same level. Early 300 points. So the King's 316, the Thane 328. Then we've got a Runesmith, 70 points for him. Just got full plate and a shield. Nothing fancy at all for the Runesmith. Just going to sit in a unit for a bit of anti-magic and to give me some extra armor bane, potentially on the crossbows in the Rangers unit. Speaking of the Rangers, we've got 20 of those. They have shields, great weapons, crossbows, throwing axes, full command, Rune of Courage, my usual combo, so they won't run away if charged by a big monster. And they can stand and shoot at point blank range with throwing axes, and they can punch you with their great weapons very hard. Then 17 Dwarf Warriors, and they just have hand weapon and shield and command. Nothing fancy there. 16 Iron Drakes, and they have full command, but they don't have a Trollhammer Torpedo because those are lame now. They have Cinderblast Bombs on the champion, and Musician and Standard Bearer there. Then we've got 2 units of Gyrocopters, 2 units of 2, all of them armed with clatter guns, also known as the Cabbage Squadron, or the Cabbage Hunters, if you will. So as long as 2 of them are alive, they have sufficient unit strength to pillage the enemy cabbage trains. So one of the 2 can be doing that. And that is everybody. So what is the plan with this list? Well, with those 2 heroes on shield bearers, I can make 2 of my units quite strong, because they're going to get a ward save, they're going to get a Thane. It isn't easy to kill, because often if you just have a Thane on foot, the enemy will think, Well, even though he's got a ward save, he's only got a couple of wounds. I'll just charge in, kill him, and then the ward saves are gone from the entire unit. But on Shieldbearers, he goes up to 5 wounds, so suddenly it's a bit more of an investment if you want to try and kill him. The King on Shieldbearers, being a toughness 10 character with 6 wounds, certain things just aren't going to want to fight him under any circumstances. So any unit he's in, the enemy may well avoid. So if you put him in a missile unit, then that could give them a bit of a dilemma if I'm shooting at them, especially if I'm shooting at them in an area of the battlefield they want to be, such as on a strategic location or something. And my plan is to score points with the Warriors and the Rangers and the Thunderers on the objectives and special features, hunt the cabbages with the Gyrocopters, and shoot everybody to death is the plan. The Dwarf Warriors, obviously, no ranged weaponry in there, but they could potentially have one of the characters added to them to make them quite scary as well. Let's dive into turn 1 of game 1. Drawn battle lines, which is scenario 3 in the Old World square-based seasonal pack. And you can see we've got these deployment zones here with this diagonal line from one corner of your deployment zone to the other. So it's consistent distance between 2 lines. And scoring, we've got strategic locations 3 and domination and baggage trains. So as with all of the square-based TSN events, there are lots of opportunities to score points outside of just murdering people. So we've got 3 strategic locations down the middle. You've got domination, which is unit strength supremacy in one of the table quarters, which is you'll score more if you double outnumber the enemy in there, or if they don't have anything in there at all. So I'm thinking Gyrocopters could be quite good for that. Even if they can't take an area at the end of the game, they can still leap into one and deny the enemy maximum points for it. And then cabbage trains, that's what they're in there for as well. So hopefully we can score some points, even if we're not doing a lot of killing, because sometimes the enemy are just going to run away because they don't want to be shot. And in game 1, let me pull up that list right here. It is Warriors of Chaos. Let's go through that list, and then one of my dwarves is facing the wrong way. Look at that. Disgraceful. Let's look at the enemy army here. So we've got a Sorcerer Lord who is a level 4 wizard on a Chaos Steed. So is in with the Knights. And let's see, where are the other characters? We've got an Exalted Champion who is on a Chaos Dragon. And we've also got the other big things. Okay, this is the Chaos Dragon here with the wings. So there's the Exalted Champion. And that means that it can have a triple save, but it's only toughness 5. So you can't take the toughness 6 Chaos Lord with a triple save anymore under the current point allowances. But you can take this toughness 5 one with a triple save. So either one of those is slightly easier to kill. We've got OG, CC and Saurus Blood in the chat. Good evening, or afternoon potentially, depending where you are. Some people, perhaps it's morning. So we've also got 2 gigantic spawn there, represented by these kind of Nurglified Mangler squigs. Very cool. Then we've got a load of Chaos Warhounds. How many of those? 2 units of Chaos Warhounds. 6 Chaos Knights, which are just regular knights. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have got the wizard in there as well, which I reckon is this one on the end here. So that's a level 4 sorcerer with demonology, and a power scroll, and a spell familiar. Then we've got 14 Forsaken, and 14 Chaos Warriors. So I think these are the Chaos Warriors here, the Nurgly looking ones, and the Forsaken are these delightful looking Beastmen. Then what else have we got? The 2 gigantic spawn, and I think that's everything. So not a lot of units there, but let's go back to the wide shot for a second. As you can see, I've got all my gyrocopters down this end, and I really am concerned about, obviously, a big flyer getting behind my lines. I don't like the idea of that. I don't have any static war machines to just spin round and shoot at that kind of thing. So I'm going to be relying on trying to get them to charge me in the front, maybe, with a big monster, and then challenging them and then defeating them that way. The giant spawn could be an issue because they randomly move, so you can't stand and shoot against them. But on the plus side, we've got 3 large targets, which means I can put my shooting units into multiple ranks, 2 ranks, and still be able to shoot them quite easily, and they'll never get any cover benefit either against my shooting, which is quite important. So, hoping to shoot all those down. The gyrocopters out here because they want to threaten the enemy cabbage, and I don't know if any of these units are... Maybe one of these spawn potentially could guard the cabbage against gyrocopters. How much are the spawn? 170 points. So would it be worth sacrificing 1 giant spawn for the whole game to just guard the cabbage? Because the gyrocopters aren't going to land anywhere near that when there's a giant spawn there, because that would almost certainly eat them. So it might really be worth doing that. Gyrocopter, a unit of 2, is 140 points with the clatter gun, so it's not that much cheaper than a spawn. So maybe it would have been worth doing that, because I don't think the champion on the dragon wants to be defending the cabbage, and neither does a unit of 14 Chaos Warriors, which comes in at 295 points. So I'm hopeful I'm going to get the cabbage, because the units hanging out there don't look like they want to defend it. I've got my own cabbage right here behind all my strong units. I've got the Rangers on the hill, the Iron Drakes in front of the hill. And obviously my opponent had to choose one of the maps that had hills in the deployment zones for this to happen, because there's usually only one of those per mission. So either your opponent has to leave it there when they veto one, or your opponent has to select it. It's not always the worst thing to give a shooting army a hill, because it depends on the rest of the terrain and the setup for that. But in this instance, I've got a hill. So Rangers on there. Thunderer's off to one side. And if the enemy want to attack me down this side, they're going to have a tough time. They will be able to get into cover in those woods, but charging out of the woods isn't that simple. And you can see I've got the Shieldbearer characters. I've got the BSB in the Warriors, because what I want to do is push them into the middle. And if they want to compete in any way against Giant Spawn or Forsaken, they're going to need a ward save, I think. So that's why he's in there. And then I've got my Toughness 10 King in with the Iron Drakes. So, did I mention that the Iron Drakes have the Master Rune of Hesitation, by the way, which means if the enemy charge into your front, then they don't get to use their lances, they don't get impact hits, they don't get any benefits of charging except for their initiative bonus. And obviously the ability to fight you could be considered a bonus. Got Christian in the chat as well. Good evening. So, I'm pretty confident about this flank. Chaos Knights and a Wizard and some Doggos, because this is where all my shooting is concentrated. Gyrocopters over here to go after the cabbage, and then start looking for potentially claiming table sections for domination at the end. Warriors are going to go down the centre and maybe get into a fight. And if anything that does fight me here, I'm pretty confident that with all my shooting I'll be able to whittle down anything else that's not directly in combat in the middle there. And obviously I've got a bit of stand and shoot on the Warriors if it's the non-giant spawn unit that goes into them. So let's see how it starts. I win the roll-off, and I choose to give away the first turn, I think, because most of my shooting isn't in range yet. And I'm not concerned if the enemy want to walk towards me and get into range of shooting, so I can have one extra turn of shooting. The only thing that would be able to fire turn 1... It's not a very good photo, is it? Potentially I could move my... Or my crossbows maybe could hit something turn 1, but I think there would have been a lot of cover involved. And I'd rather just have a nice, clean turn of shooting by going second. So you can see I vanguarded my gyrocopters behind these woods as well. Turn 1, the enemy have pushed up pretty much along that line there. The other spawn is behind the building there. And 6 points for the enemy for holding these two, with the Forsaken and the Chaos Warriors holding these 2 objectives there. So 30 points for each one, for each turn that you hold them. I'm going to ignore the objectives quite a bit in this game, because I don't want to be that close to all these horrible enemy units. So, into my turn. I rearrange a little bit, not too much movement though, and the shooting demolishes one of the giant spawn. So takes one down, which is great for one turn of shooting, with all those shots piled into it. The Gyrocopters flap beyond the enemy and fire their clatter guns, which they can do on the march, into the Chaos Warriors and kill one of them. If you look at where they were, down here, so they've just flapped up into this location here, outside of the charge arcs of those two units, and then just shot at them. So, kill the Chaos Warrior, kill the spawn, the one that was closer to me, and that's another blurry wide shot. So I've got a new phone, which obviously means a different camera, and I think I need to get used to how long it takes to focus and such. It's got all kinds of weird features that it keeps trying to use when I'm taking photos. So, got to tinker with that a bit. My opponent scores some more points. And going into round 2, the Forsaken and the Spawn move up here. And I don't think this is going to go too well for them, looking at all my guns pointed at them. But there is a horrible vortex right there, a big vortex of chaos right next to me. The Knights move up into the woods, and the dogs are trying to sneak round the side there. Very sneaky indeed, those hounds. The other unit of hounds are just hiding behind this building because they don't want to be killed and they want to be able to score domination at the end of the game, I think, which is a valid tactic. Also, the Aspiring Champion on Dragon comes around the corner to threaten my flank, so I'm going to have to think about what to do with this unit of warriors. I'm going to have to do a bit of rotating and try and keep everyone in the front arc and see how that goes. And the Chaos Warriors turn round to face that way in case I want to go and touch the baggage train, I think. Because then they might be able to charge me. So, more points scored for the enemy, and in fact even more because the Knights are a core unit and they've moved up to within 6 inches of this one. So all the points being scored by the enemy, so I'm falling behind a bit. I'm going to have to start killing even more stuff now to catch up. So, you can see the vortex moving around there, but doesn't manage to do much. I shoot down some of the Forsaken in the middle, put a wound onto the giant spawn. 2 Gyrocopters go and touch the cabbages. The other ones just move over the Chaos Warriors, drop their bombs, and then shoot them, but only manage to kill 1 in total. And not a great round of shooting there, considering all these Iron Drakes, all these Rangers, only killed 4 out of that unit and did a wound to the spawn. So not great, and it could be about time for the enemy to unleash some charges. I have managed to get everyone into the front arc, though, by positioning this unit of warriors with the BSB. So turn 3 for the enemy, the vortex continues to move, and we've got some charges declared from the Forsaken and the Knights into the Iron Drakes. And I don't personally think anyone in their right mind should ever charge Iron Drakes in the front, but if you've got 2 strong units, then you'd hope one of them's going to get in at least, especially with a toughness 10 king in there. But if you want to fight anything of mine, you're going to have to come close to them anyway, because they are right at the front. The dragon is also charging into the warriors. And the Iron Drakes managed to rack up 8 wounds on the stand and shoot with the Cinderblast bomb as well, leaving only 2 Forsaken. Then let's see, a stand and shoot from the BSB. We had to get the little arc out to see if he could actually see the dragon that was charging them, and we figured out that he could just about. So manages to do 1 wound to that on the way in. And it does charge in, and then the giant spawn randomly moves in as well into combat. You can see that the Knights and the Forsaken both failed their charge. They just took 8 casualties for very little gain in the end. The Hounds are now behind my lines, but I'm not overly concerned. I don't think they're very good. And if this was a game of Kings of War, I would be very concerned about any unit getting into the rear or flank because it increases their number of attacks. But Warhammer Old World, it's just going to increase the combat resolution mostly. So I'm not too concerned by just a few doggos. We've got Go For It in the chat. Good evening. And into combat. So I managed to win the combat with my ward save on those warriors against all the attacks. I just make quite a lot of them and only take 3, and I'm able to amass a total of 7 combat res on my own. including the stand and shoot, the BSB, Rune of Battle, banner, and got some ranks as well. We've got Riley in the chat. Good evening. We'll see if the doggos live to regret getting behind my lines. And I successfully restrain, I believe, so I'm then able to shoot them next turn, now that they've both given ground. And it's looking pretty good for the dwarves, I think, at this stage. So, more scoring though, into my turn, and you'll notice that I have harvested all the cabbages from the cabbage train. There's a token to represent that. And then they fly away. And my gyrocopters are now just going to focus on shooting people. And with all my shooting, I managed to put 3 wounds. Is it wounds remaining? I think it is. 3 wounds remaining on the giant spawn, 5 wounds remaining on the dragon. So I've taken a few wounds off that as well. I've got my handgun Thane, had some clatter guns, and the rangers also spun round so they could shoot them. So they're going to take some penalties, obviously, for doing that, because they're ponderous crossbows. Christian says, is that giant spawn a converted squig? Very cool. It's 2 converted giant squigs. And the armies at this venue are consistently of a very high standard. Especially this event, actually. Normally, when you're voting for the coolest army award, it's 2 armies you vote for. And it's usually not that difficult, because there's usually 1 or 2 that stand out above the rest. Sometimes only 1 that stands out. But this time, there was at least 6, I think, where normally I would have voted for them. So you'll see when we get to the pictures of all the armies between games 4 and 5. The Thunderers and the Iron Drakes whittle down the Chaos Knights, so there's only 1 left and the Sorcerer. So I've done plenty of damage. I moved the Iron Drakes forward a bit so that the dragon wouldn't be able to see them, which was obviously very important. So my opponent is still scoring points though, because the Chaos Warriors are still hanging out on that objective. Into the enemy turn 4. We've got Hounds into the rear. We've got the Sorcerer on his own into the front because the stand and shoot managed to kill off the last Chaos Knight. The Spawn and the Dragon go back into the Warriors. And there's not much else for the Chaos. So somehow the Thunderers managed to defeat the forces of Chaos in combat here, who both end up giving ground. So I killed one of the Hounds and didn't lose any models at all against the Sorcerer and the Hounds. So despite the fact that they had a rear charge, that's actually the only combat res they got. Wow, wow, wow. And whereas let's see, what did I have going for me? I had a wound. I might have also done a wound to this guy. And did I also outnumber them? Ooh, should I have outnumbered them actually? Let me see. Maybe it should have been a draw. Because actually the Hounds just unit strength 1 each. They might not be 2 because they're not cavalry, are they? They're just beasts. So yeah, I think I did outnumber. So I think that's correct. Johnny says, big fan of your BSB Thane conversion with the Ironbreaker standard. Yes, I was looking at my bits box to see what would be the most appropriate arms. Not only did they have to look good, but they also have to fit in the pose and actually attach. And none of the banner arms really did, so I had to saw some of it and then build it back up with green stuff to get the elbow joint to the right angle so it actually sits in the socket nicely with the magnet. And then the pistol is obviously from the Iron Drakes as well, and it's one of the only guns that I could find that was in one hand. And you obviously need the other hand for the standard. Over here, I win the combat again. I do lose a couple of dwarves, but the ward saves are really saving me. And we're seeing the benefit of the BSB having 5 wounds now. Because he's a bit harder to hurt than the regular warriors. Because he's got higher weapon skill, for a start. And I think he's also toughness 5 as well, the old Thane. Which makes him a bit more difficult to wound. So, the enemy are generally hesitant to put attacks into him because they don't think they're going to kill him with those 5 wounds, which keeps the ward save intact on everyone else. So then I make a few ward saves and suddenly I'm only losing 2 models and winning combat and making them both give ground again. So, into my turn 4. And you'll notice that the dragon is dead. The Iron Drakes spin round to shoot it. The Thane shoots it with the handgun. And the Rangers are there as well, blasting away. I don't know if the Thane even needed to join in. Can't remember now. Gyrocopters are circling these Chaos Warriors again, blasting away, slowly whittling them down. But the aspiring champion on dragon is dead. And I'm very pleased about that. Exalted champion, not aspiring. Exalted champion is dead. And over on this side, the Thunderers actually failed to do anything, which is unfortunate, but nothing to be concerned about. It looks like the game's pretty much in the bag now. Into the enemy turn, we get the double charge in here again, and I have actually lost some Thunderers this time. The spawn goes back into the Warriors, and the Thunderers do get killed this time, unfortunately. And yeah, look at this, the wide shots are slightly blurry, aren't they, with this new camera? So I'm going to have to twiddle with those settings a bit. The spawn loses again, but does not die, and backs up a bit. Obviously can't be challenged, because it's not a character, so that's why the spawn was able to kill off some dwarves this turn. And into my turn 5, spawn is gone. There we go, that's a nice better picture there. Lots of shooting from the Iron Drakes. Kill the spawn. Kill some more Chaos Warriors perhaps, but not really. Don't manage to kill off the Sorcerer or the dogs, but I do spread out a bit because I'm thinking about the scenario as well now with domination. My opponent just spins around to face the Gyrocopters. And see, that's a nice clear wide shot, isn't it? And in my turn, because they're now hiding in the woods, I'm not able to do much with my shooting, unfortunately, but I do make the Chaos Warriors run away. And let's see, how did I do that? I think... How many's left in the unit? Did I shoot them? Because if I shot them, I don't think they should have fled. I think they should have fallen back in good order. I think it may have been the handgun Thane. There he is. He's popped out, killed some of them. Okay, I remember now. I have actually killed loads of them, but it was right at the end of the game, and just to save time, I just put a dice there to show how many guys are left in the unit. So he shot down a ton of them, the Thane. There's only 3 guys left there, and they fled. So I'm going to get some nice points for that unit as well. So, end of the game. Let me just pull open the results page here. So, in round 1, with all the scores added up, because I've got some good domination points for the various sections that I own. Obviously, the enemy can't do anything with this because it's a fleeing unit. So, I was able to get a 17-3 win against Chaos Warriors, which is always a delight. Round 2. Against the Bretonnians. Now, when I face Bretonnia, what do I want to see as a dwarf player? I want to see lots of knights on horses. What do I not want to see? I don't want to see the horn that stops things flying, even for just 1 turn now, I think it is. I don't want to see Pegasus Knights, possibly, because they can just run amok all over the place. But knights on horses, I think, have a tough time against dwarves, especially Knights of the Realm, because they're only toughness 3. So all that strength 4 shooting going into them, potentially with good AP, and Knights just don't have a good time against that, because every save that's failed is a significant number of points you're losing, whereas shooting into Goblins, not quite so painful when you lose one of those. So, what have we got in this one? We've got 4 strategic locations, so loads of scoring potential in this one. And we've got a special feature right in the middle there as well. And I believe domination... is domination in effect as well on this one? Can't remember. Baggage trains definitely are, because we've got some cabbage there, we've got some cabbage there. Okay, so you'll see here that I've got rangers forward on this hill, and it's one of these fancy new hills at the TSN. I actually saw one of them fully painted, by the way. These were just made very hastily recently, and they are going to be more decorated if they're anything like the one I saw, which looked very attractive actually. These ones just a bit bare bones for the moment, and they do have these magnetized bases as well, so if your unit is hanging off the hill, you don't have to build a tower of dice or prop them up with anything. You can just take the top off and say, yep, that's where the hill is, just like with the woods, which is nice. It's nice to have the option, because you don't just want to see a totally flat battlefield where everything's a bit abstract. You want the terrain to actually be there until you move on to it, which I think is the ideal setup for terrain. Riley is a big fan of the proper terrain shadows. I am also a fan. So, what is in this Bretonnia list? We have got... Let me pull the list up here. There we go. So it's like dead Bretonnians. So they're clearly undead, but they are Bretonnia. So we've got a Duke on a Royal Pegasus, who is somewhere. There it is. Right there. We've also got another character on a Royal Pegasus. But I can't remember which is which. Let me go back to the wide shot a second. We've got one behind there. And where's the other one? Is it there? Let's have a look. Yeah, behind the woods hiding. So, I think this one could be the Duke. With the Paymaster's Coin, Gauntlet of the Duel, Gromril Great Helm. And this one is slightly lesser points, like 100 points lower-ish. That one has Ogre Blade and Virtue of Knightly Temper. So, the one thing you've got to watch out for when you're running around with a Toughness 10 King is things with Killing Blow. So, got to be concerned about that already. Then, what else have we got? We have got 2 units of Knights of the Realm there. And that's 2 units of 6 with command. We've got a massive unit of Knights over here. 10 Grail Knights, which is way more Grail Knights than you normally see, because they're very expensive. That unit is 431 points for 10 wounds. So each one of them that dies, that is very painful. They have got command. They've got the Rampaging Banner, but I can't remember what that does right now. And what else have we got? We've got some... I think they've got some crummy infantry in there as well. We have got peasants. Yep, peasants. We've got... how many of them? We have 11 men-at-arms. And they do have a bit of command going on. So, if we go back to the wide shot, and I've got my gyrocopters on this side. Iron Drakes with a Runesmith. You might think that's overkill, but I'm thinking Iron Drakes with a Runesmith means that the Armor Bane, if I roll any 6s to wound Knights with them, that's going to be obscene, and even Grail Knights just wouldn't get a save against that. So they're going to be relying on a ward save. So that's what I'm thinking there. Have I also got Burlock in that unit? No, he's over here. So I've got the 2 gyrocopters there. Potentially hunting cabbage, but most likely these 2 are going to be on that mission. Also, I can hide behind the hill, wait for the enemies to pop out and like dance around the knights. Depending if the Royal Pegasus character comes down here, because obviously that's a skirmisher, can charge me wherever I am, so I've got to be wary of that. But it's also deterrent to that kind of unit. Dwarf Warriors here with nobody upgrading them at all. Just guarding the cabbage along with the Thunderers who are sitting on this objective. So both those units are within 6 of this one. The Rangers are within 6 of this one with the Scout move. And you can see that my Toughness 10 King and Burlock are going to try to join this unit in turn 2. They won't be able to do it turn 1 because I don't think you can march into a unit. But turn 1 they can go right up to them. Turn 2 they can jump in there. So ideally I want to go first, because if I'm going second, that means this unit is way more likely to be charged without the characters being in there, which we don't really want. I just wanted them to be on this hill, was the main thing. And the special feature, I've got my Dwarf Warriors who are going to try to claim that at the end of the game with their unit strength. So, let's dive into turn 1. Nice over-the-shoulder action shot there. The enemy go first. And initially, we thought that the Baron had charged into my Rangers. However, upon closer inspection of the rules, my opponent then found out that actually it's only the War Horses that have a special rule where they can reroll 1 on the charge. So that charge does not actually succeed. So you'll notice it teleports away in a minute. There we go. So moving up with the Knights of the Realm. And the enemy are hesitant to go towards my Iron Drakes, as you can imagine. And the Duke has landed right here, in front of my Warriors, in front of my Thunderers. And it's a dangerous spot, because a very wide threat area for this Duke now could potentially go and attack the cabbage. But would I be too worried about that? It's a very expensive unit to be cabbage hunting. So it's a lot of points for the cabbage, though. You destroy it, you do get 250 points, I think. Christian says, can cavalry scale hills? Yes. Unless there's some bizarre part of the rulebook I haven't read. But yes, they can. Okay, so we both score 60 points in round 1 because my opponent has moved up some Knights of the Realm to within range of this objective there, and has the peasants within range of that one, and I've got these two. The enemy are actually quite close to this one, but I am slightly closer. So 60 each. And more added on each round. Yeah, so the dice I'm adding here for the objectives, they might be slightly out of sequence with the pictures sometimes, because I might take the photo and then put the dice there, or sometimes I might put the dice there and then take the photo. So, Gyrocopters dancing around the Grail Knights. Don't want to get charged by any of them. And the Handgun Thane of Doom is the one that manages to shoot down several of these Knights of the Realms. There's only 2 left in that unit now. Over on this side, I decide that instead of waiting another turn to go into this unit, the Rangers actually move backwards a little bit first, and then the 2 characters can actually reach them. So, and some of them are still on the hill as well, but not all of them. So I decide that it's worth limiting my stand and shoot output by having some of the guys not on the hill, so that I can get both the characters in there immediately, because I don't want to be hit with this triple charge without my toughness 10 king, and without Burlock as well. So, more points being racked up, and into the enemy turn. There is a stand and shoot being declared, and I've taken 3 casualties with it from this unit of Knights of the Realm. All 3 of them are charging in, and they all make it. Then the Baron decides to go after my cabbages, which is very mean-spirited. The Knights of the Realm turn around to look at the Gyrocopters. The Grail Knights are a bit terrified now. After seeing what the shooting can do, they're now turning around and deciding they're not going to go over the hill towards the Iron Drakes. Probably a good idea. So the middle of the table is looking a bit vacant at the moment. In combat, I do lose quite a few Rangers, but I do hit back quite well also and kill some Knights, put a wound, I think I get a wound through onto the Duke maybe there. And I fall back in good order anyway. So that's okay. And it also means that now we've got them stuck there. I think some of them, I think these ones will still get their lances next turn, because I think they did travel far enough. And I think there was a challenge. I believe one of the Knights of the Realm champions issued a challenge, which killed... Let's see. Who did I accept the challenge with? I think I accepted it with my champion if there was one, because obviously my king is in prime position to punch this guy, who has to be like between all of these 4 models, touching all of them to maximize. So lost quite a few, but had just about enough in order to only fall back in good order there. And racking up more points. Into my turn 2. Well, this is an interesting turn of events. The Gyrocopters steam into the Knights of the Realm. A rear charge. So if we look at the wide shot, the Gyrocopters go in here, into the unit that had more Knights in it, and managed to do an awful lot of killing. Most of the Rangers did get wiped out, but it is the end of the... I think it is the Duke. No, is it the Baron? Yeah, it was the Baron. So the Baron is the one with the Ogre Blade, obviously terrifying, but it is now dead at the hands of my king. And there's one lonely knight running away. Not the best time to be a Bretonnian in this little area. There will be some points scored for the Rangers because they've been whittled down, but there's still a few left, so they're still preserving a good chunk of their points as well. So more points being built up because I have this one. I don't have this one anymore. And my cabbages have been stolen by the Duke, which is very unfortunate. Cabbages destroyed. There's the cabbage token. And the Knight of the Realm does not rally, keeps running away. I like the stone on the bases here. And we've got a charge out of the cabbage fields into the Thunderers from the Duke. Got a vortex plop down there. And the Thunderers get obliterated, which is sad for them. But we now have the Duke sitting right in the middle of the table, ready to be shot. The Grail Knights move up as well. They're looking to get involved in the action, which we don't want because they're quite strong. And into my turn 3. So everyone surrounds the Duke and starts blasting away as much as possible. A few crossbows and some clatter guns. Gyrocopters just staying out of trouble, doing some shooting. Iron Drakes doing what shooting they can. Managed to kill... How many Grail Knights are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we've only killed one Grail Knight to this point. And... yeah, you'll notice that these peasants are guarding the cabbages right now. And I've decided not to commit to go after the cabbages yet, because I wanted to put more shots into this guy. And I feel like I've still got time to do it, because Gyrocopters are very fast, but I am going to have to go for the cabbages very soon if I want to take them. So more points being racked up. I'm slightly ahead on these secondary objectives there. Into turn 4 for the enemy. The Knight of the Realm continues to flee and survives running through one of my units. The Grail Knights make it into the Dwarf Warriors, which I'm not so happy about. The Duke decides to go after the Rangers and the King, which is going to be a fun little battle there. And that's about it for the turn, so let's see what happens as a result of all that madness. Well, the Dwarf Warriors get chased down and murdered, unfortunately. And Burlock gets killed. Now, I think this is the one that has... Is this the one that has Killing Blow? Or was that the other one? Let's see. Regardless, Burlock was the one that went into the challenge. And for me to have had any concern, I would suspect maybe there's some Killing Blow involved here. To throw Burlock in there to get killed instead. And into my turn. We now have a challenge between the King. Oh, I think there was some kind of charge bonus that wasn't going to apply in this round, or some kind of first round bonus. So that's why I didn't want the King in there yet. Over here, I'm going to start blasting. I've got my BSB on the end of the Iron Drakes there to do some shooting into the Grail Knights, start whittling them down. So there's only 6 remaining now. And in the enemy turn, alright, you can see I've touched the cabbages with my Gyrocopters as well. so I can destroy those next time. The other gyrocopters are coming this way, so they can shoot at the peasants to knock them down below 10 so they can't score points on this anymore. And we've got a vortex that's just swirling around, which means that my opponent got the special secret objective, which was to cast 3 spells during a single turn without them being dispelled. So that's why a vortex was just thrown into the middle of nowhere, because it wasn't really required. The Grail Knights are now involved in a fight here. Well, almost, because I defeated the Duke in combat, fell back in good order, and then I overran and got within like half an inch of the Grail Knights. Turn 5 for me. The Gyrocopters surrounding, getting ready to shoot. The Thane gets out of the Iron Drake unit, so he can shoot at someone as well, because he wouldn't be able to see anyone otherwise. But not too much accomplished. It looks like he's just got one more Grail Knight killed. And into the enemy turn. Grail Knight's just hiding a bit from the king, maybe. And this wizard, I think this is the wizard here, on a horse. Is it just a wizard, or is it Elise Duchard? I think it's actually just a wizard. Maybe? Moves here. And did I even mention the wizard when I was going through the list? It's because they're all undead, so I couldn't really tell where the wizard was. But I think the wizard was in... was it in the Grail Knight unit? Yes, I think she left the unit to go here and cast a spell at the Rangers, which was one of the line spells, where you just draw a line and anyone under it gets hit. So that's why there's been some damage just out here. You can see that my king has been taking damage as well. So I think maybe the second one, maybe that one didn't have Killing Blow. I've been slowly taking damage there, despite being toughness 10. My turn 6, surround the enemy, keep blasting them, and that's going to be it. So, let me just pull up the final scores for that one. In round 2, so if we look at the special feature, no one's got that. There's not enough unit strength in the middle for anyone to hold it. You need a core unit, and none of those really exist on the table at this stage. I have amassed more points on the objectives around here, and I seem to have killed a reasonable bit more as well. And with all that combined, we end up with the result of 12-8 to the Dwarves, which is pretty good. What have I actually lost? Let's see. So, who died? I've lost the Dwarf Warriors. I've lost the Thunderers. There's only one Ranger left, so I haven't quite lost that whole unit. So that definitely helped keep it as a win rather than a draw. Into the next game. And in round 3... I'm up against goblins, so let me crack open that list for you. There we go, so orcs and goblins in close quarter. So this one uses strategic locations 2, secondary objective, that is a secondary objective, and may include the domination. So it's domination and 2 strategic locations. And final thoughts on this game as well. I think it's just a tough matchup for Bretonnia with the knights. And with all the guns I've got, it's a really tough time for them, unfortunately for them. They don't like facing all that strength 4 shooting that usually has a bit of AP attached to it as well, some good armor bane. And they rightly just didn't go near the Iron Drakes at all. Goblins then. Lots of goblins and some orcs. Let's have a look what we've got here. We've got a Knight Goblin Odd Knob Wizard, level 4, with Warg magic, who is actually right there hanging out between the units, not in there, but I don't have any artillery that could accidentally land on him, so he should be alright there. Then we've got, well, we've got a Mangler, a Rockclobber, a unit of Black Orcs, 15 of them to be precise, with a War Banner. We've got a small unit of 6 squig hoppers. We've got a doom diver, so I'm very pleased I didn't bring any war machines into this game, because doom divers are just like the ultimate anti-war machine war machine. Then we've got 3 big units of goblins. We've got some archers. We've got some with spears. And hold on, let's go back. I think we've got 2 pokey units and 1 shooty unit. They all have 3 fanatics, obviously. Standard goblin. And then we've got 5 wolf riders over there. Potential cabbage hunters. Got to keep an eye on them. Another mangler. And there is the boss over there. So that is a black orc. Let's see what kind it is. It's a Black Orc War Boss on a Wyvern, Trollhide Trousers, Talisman of Protection. So, triple save. But, being a Wyvern, it's not quite as killy as a Dragon. So, what are the areas of concern? I do have lots of shooting, but the enemy have 3 war machines. So, there's a range superiority for them. I do have units that can hunt war machines with gyrocopters. But the enemy have units that can guard things from gyrocopters because they have mangler squigs, which are only 95 points, but I still would not want to fight them with the gyros. So, that is a concern. We're both probably going to keep scoring these objectives for the whole game, unless we kill each other. And I don't want to get the Wyvern in behind any of my units, but I'm not too concerned about it on its own. I'm concerned about it if the unit's been softened up by fanatics first, obviously. And also if it goes in with maybe a mangler squig or some black orcs. I'm not too concerned about the goblin units, it's just the numbers of them that were going to be annoying to chew through. We shall see though. Got gyrocopters on this side and on that side. They're not going to be as effective against random movers again, like in the game with the giant spawn. That was something that concerned me in the game against Bretonnians. It was a skirmishing strong character unit that concerned me. Against orcs and goblins, it's generally going to be the mangler squigs that are going to give me cause for concern. I've got my... This is actually a hill here. So the Iron Drakes have my BSB in there. And the plan is for them to move in front of the hill and let the Rangers have it. But the deployment zone ends right there. So they couldn't deploy in front of the hill. So they're going to move off it and then let the Rangers occupy the hill. And I believe I'm going first in this one. There we go, I'm going first. Gyrocopters heading out down the flank to threaten the enemy war machines. And they could force mangler squigs to hide back there to guard the war machines, which wouldn't be a bad thing. My rangers on the hill shoot down a few goblins, not too many I think. And that's about it. The Iron Drakes down off the hill, making space for the rangers. We have 1 objective each, which is going to be very consistent throughout the game until we get to each other. Into the enemy turn, you can see that the Wyvern is now staring down the gyrocopters. The Wolf Riders are a bit concerned. The Mangler Squig there as well. So I've got to watch out for both these 2 units. They're quite dangerous compared to goblins, but they do have fanatics in those, so I'm not going to underestimate them either. War Machines. Doom Diver lands a direct hit on a gyrocopter, rolls a 1 for the number of wounds. So it must have just hit the pilot like on that bit of the shoulder, you know, on TV when people get shot in the shoulder, it's like the survival hole, the place they always get shot where you know the character's going to survive. Whereas if it's like through the centre of the chest, you know the character ain't coming back. So I think it just hit him in the shoulder. Bit of a shoulder wound. And the other one wounds itself by misfiring comically, but does not blow up. So that is a benefit. So not too much damage either way so far. And the enemy are being given cause to hesitate by my gyrocopters and are being quite defensive over the war machines with the Mangler Squig. Turn 2 for me. Gyros. Instead of going down that way towards the Mangler, they just pop over this way instead and have a shot at the Squig Hoppers. The other ones do very similar, pop out this way and try and shoot at the Mangler Squig. The Iron Drakes move forward. And the Rangers take aim and shoot down a ton of goblins out of this unit, which is nice. And look, there's human measuring going on there. Christian says taking crops they didn't grow is historically what nobility is for, I suppose. Yes, I don't know if the nobility would personally go out there and take all the crops themselves. I'm sure they would give the order. So peasants would definitely be looking to do that on behalf of the nobility, I'm sure. Okay, I'm a bit concerned now because we've got goblins closing in on me who are about to unleash their fanatics. But you'll notice that because fanatics are a factor of this game, I've put the BSB with the ward save banner into my Iron Drakes, and they're the furthest unit forward. So any fanatics that get released are presumably going to go in there, so at least I've got a ward save to defend myself. Doom Diver this time takes out an Iron Drake. And into my turn, we see the fanatics released. One of them reaches the Iron Drakes, goes through, does not kill anyone. The other two stop just in front. So I am pinned down now. Can't really move without accidentally activating the fanatics. The goblins there. And yeah, because we're in my turn here. They just got released on my turn. So my shooting kills a load more goblins. A load out of this unit as well. Now, my secret objective is to take a unit from unit strength 10 down to 0. And I think I actually could have done it on this unit at some point. But I forgot about it, so didn't pour all my attacks into them. And now they're on, I think, how many's left now? 9, is that? So I don't think I'll be able to do it to them anymore. Gyrocopters decide that they just want to sit next to the Mangler Squig and ask if it wants to fight them. Because if we go down here, let's have a look. I don't want the Mangler really charging into the flank of my Iron Drakes and fighting the BSB. Because I don't think I'm going to do very well in combat against it. And I don't think you can make it flee. Pretty sure it's... Is it unbreakable, the Mangler Squig? It's just a big slobbering monster, so you would think it is. So I would ideally like it to try and charge the Gyrocopters from right next to them, and then hope that I can survive. The other Gyrocopters move into the woods so they can shoot at the Squighoppers, and they kill a few of them. Everyone else is just re-angling themselves. You can see my Toughness 10 King in the Warriors is really just waiting for Black Orcs or a Mangler or anything fighty to come this way so they can come out and fight. But as it stands, they don't really need to. Turn 3 for the enemy. Squighoppers into the Gyrocopters. The Mangler Squig is moving very slowly towards them as well. All the fanatics have disappeared, so one of them, I think, rolled a double and died, and the other two crashed into each other and died. So that worked out well. Mangler into the Gyros. And we've got more goblins moving up, so I suspect we're going to see more fanatics plopped out at the start of the next turn. Doom Diver this time kills a few more Iron Drakes, so that's not good. And you can see my Gyrocopters defeated the Squighoppers, overran, and ended up here with 1 wound taken. So I quite like how it's looking in terms of Gyrocopters, because it's my turn next. And on the one hand, the enemy could unleash fanatics towards them. But if they do that, they're not going for the Iron Drakes, which is where more of the danger is. So the Gyrocopters here could actually be a good little sneaky trap almost to get the enemy to unleash the fanatics in this direction rather than at the more important unit. Because with toughness 5 on the gyros, there's no guarantee that the fanatics would do a lot of wounds there anyway. And yeah, definitely need to tweak my settings on these wide shots. I've got a lot of messing around with to do on this new phone. Turn 4 for me. We've got more fanatics surrounding the Iron Drakes. 2 of them went through, but didn't do a whole ton of damage, as you can see, with the ward saves. The Gyrocopters fly over the enemy's heads, land back here, and do some clattergunning. And with the Iron Drakes and the Rangers and the Thunderers, all that shooting from down here, you can see one of the units of goblins is now fleeing, and that is the one that contains the BSB, I think. Who is... Let's see. I think there's 2 goblin big bosses. And that one is the BSB. There's another one maybe in this unit. I don't think I mentioned them before. But it was the one with the big banner in there. I think that one was the BSB, who is now on the run, I think. And... uh-oh. You can see this custom magic card with apparently a child's illustration of what Itchy Nuisance looks like. So, my Iron Drakes are now reduced to toughness 1 for the turn, which is quite hilarious. So hopefully the Fanatics don't do too much to them. The Fanatics mostly just stand still or move away, so that's fortunate. The Goblins continue to flee there, which is sad for them. And... or is that just a normal big boss and the BSB in a different unit? It could be, because that looks like a big boss there, doesn't it? That red one. But not so much a banner. Okay, so the enemy are definitely closing in on me. I say that, but are they really? The Fanatics are closing in, because there's some that haven't been released yet, I think. This Mangler Squig is taking its sweet time getting to me. The issue is going to be if I can't finish off these units, I'm not going to get points. This is also a slight concern. We've got a Wyvern setting up in the flank of my Iron Drakes. I have to decide whether I'm going to acknowledge that and actually turn to face it, which I probably won't, or just accept that it charges me. Doom Diver does nothing. Second Doom Diver scatters way off course and kills a few of their own goblins, which is classic goblin behaviour. And you can see the Iron Drakes are now a little bit surrounded by goblins, black orcs and a wyvern. So I've got decisions to make. There's also the 2 manglers coming in. So the enemy are kind of moving in, but the archer goblins are heavily whittled down. So I'm not concerned about them anymore, at least. Turn 5 for me. So we are running out of time to score points. The Fanatics, again, kind of meander around and don't do a lot. The Rangers utterly obliterate one of the Goblin units. So the unit that had about 13 or 14 guys left in it just kills them in one round. So that is going to get my battle tactic as well. Not this. This isn't Age of Sigmar. It's a secret objective, not a battle tactic. There you go. So they are dead. The Iron Drakes shoot down a couple of Black Orcs, but nothing particularly to worry about for them. And now we're going to get multi-charged. Into, there we go, overwhelming firepower secret objective. 75 points, so nice little bonus there. Enemy turn 5. We get Goblins and Wyvern into the combat. Now, the perils of multi-charging. The Goblins charged into the front, meaning they took a Cinderblast bomb, they took the Drake guns, and they took the handgun Thane of Doom. And you may notice that they've taken 14 casualties from the stand and shoot. The BSB with the handgun, on his own, killed 11 goblins on the stand and shoot. Let that sink in for a moment. So, before the enemy have swung any attacks, they're already down 14. So, in this instance, I would say maybe the Wyvern should have possibly gone in on its own, or maybe only looking to go in with like the Black Orcs, who are a bit tougher and more robust. Because the Goblins are giving away a huge amount of combat resolution there. The Fanatics swirling around again, not having a strong performance, but I think one of them does kill an Iron Drake. Mangler Squig into the Thunderers. And the reason I set them up like this with the warriors facing this way is that if the Thunderers got nudged back a bit, I could then flank charge the Mangler Squig with my Dwarf Lord with the great weapon. The Black Orcs are quite far away, so they weren't able to join in yet. And then we've got pictures of Doom Divers. Oh yeah, the Goblins fled off the table, that's what that picture is. The ones that were fleeing did not rally and they're gone. Doom Diver, Rock Lobber, they take down a few Rangers actually, which is the first time they've really been targeted because the Iron Drakes are in combat now. And the BSB takes a wound in combat with the Wyvern there. And I win combat, obviously, because I did 14 on the stand and shoot, and both units fall back in good order. I restrain, and I'm going to be able to decide who I want to shoot at next turn. So 1 turn to go. And it's fairly close scoring-wise, even though it feels like I'm massacring the goblins here. You can see that the Thunderers, even though they got beaten up horribly by the Mangler Squig, they were still able to not break. So, turn 6 for me. What am I going to do in this position? I'm going to not be able to charge the Mangler Squig there, because unfortunately the angles that it worked out at, I can't see him anymore, so that's not fun. I'm going to just shoot and try and kill the goblins and try and kill the Black Orcs, maybe. But I'm going to focus on the goblins with the rangers, I think, because that's a killable unit there now. There's only about 8 left in it, so I should be able to kill them and get a nice chunk of points. The Iron Drakes can shoot the Black Orcs, and then just accept that the Wyvern will charge them, because I've got a BSB with a ward save there who can be in a challenge and hopefully not die too horribly. Turn 6. The Iron Drakes shoot down some more Black Orcs. The Goblins are all dead as a result of the Rangers shooting. Thunderers fire at the Mangler. I turn my Warriors to face them just in case the Mangler decided to attack them instead. And some more points racked up there. The points are actually slightly behind still. Turn 6 for the enemy. Itchy Nuisance again, but this time it only reduces them to like toughness 3 or 2 instead of 1 this time, so not quite as bad. Mangler back into the Thunderers. Mangler and Wyvern into the Iron Drakes. They've learned their lesson now, the Orcs and Goblins, not sending a unit charging into the front because the Mangler is a random mover, so that just moved in afterwards on its own. And the Iron Drakes are dying. Down to 4 Iron Drakes. I managed to win the combat again though, because I do some decent damage back, I think, or either whoever won anyway, someone gave ground, and not much exciting to report there because no one's fleeing, no one's dead, so that is going to be the end of the game. Now, this is the last game on day 1, and there's a bit of a roller coaster journey to explain with the result of this game. So, we suspected that I would be slightly ahead because I have finished off more units. I also had the slight edge on objective scoring on these ones, and on domination, let's see, that's a bit more equal. I've got this one, my opponent has this one, I've got this one, and my opponent has this one. Some of them are uncontested, so I think my opponent has a slight edge on that. I got my secret objective, which is a bonus for me. So, we start doing the maths, figuring out the total, and it becomes apparent that it's going to be very, very close here, so we have to actually do the maths a couple of times to make sure that it's correct. But we're also in a rush because it's the end of the day. So, the initial score goes in, and it looks like a draw. However, upon closer inspection of that draw, turns out I forgot to add my secret objective, which I then pointed at and thought, oh yeah, we forgot about that thing. So then I had won the game. However, that's not the end of the story. So we put the win in on BCP on the app, submitted it, went home, and I thought, you know what, we were kind of in a rush there. So even though we did the maths, I feel like we could have made a mistake there. So I'm going to go back through the photos and just make sure it's all 100% correct, because I think something could have slipped through there. So I went through, did all the maths, and it kept coming up as a draw when I was putting the scores in. And I was thinking, have I missed something here? Because we got it as a win for me. And then I figured out that actually I hadn't added on the bonus for killing the enemy BSB, who either ran off the table or got shot to death. So there's a bonus 50 points for that, which nudged me into win territory. So I thought, okay, yep, that's fine, I've won. And then I thought, actually, those Iron Drakes, there's 4 of them left. I'm not 100% sure that it's the threshold for killing enough of a unit. It's either get them down to 25%, or get them down to below 25%. I was thinking it was below when we were doing the scoring. So I went and read the actual rule, And it is if you knock them down to 25%. And there were 16 of them, and there's 4 left. So that's exactly 25% of the Iron Drakes remaining. So my opponent would have actually scored an extra 150 something points for them. So even though it was down as a win, it should have been a draw. So when I got there the next day, I then announced to Rob, the TO, there should have been some more points for the Orcs there. So even though it's down as a win, it should actually be a draw. So then he amended that, so it is a draw. So a roller coaster ride. I thought I'd won twice. I thought I'd drawn twice. And ultimately, it was a draw. I was something like 70, 80 points away from getting a win, I think. Because you need to have a gap of 300 victory points to claim a win. Anything less is a draw. So I had more points, but not enough to get the win. So, very good game, very close. And yeah, we saw the most impressive stand and shoot ever from this guy. 11 goblins. I don't think one model is going to beat that anytime soon. To day 2. A chance encounter, which is diagonally opposite deployment zones. And there is potential for there to be a bit of a blockage in the middle, because there's going to be a special feature and domination. So the special feature is right in the middle. And if you choose the map that has buildings there, you can potentially end up with just a blockade between the two armies. If you choose the red zones and you put the special feature there, then there's very little that can walk through that gap. Now, I'm up against Beastmen. And this player was in the lead at the time, these Beastmen. Any of you YouTube fiends out there, you may recognise it as the Beastmen belonging to Mr. Close Order himself. Christian says, those goblins with their bold colour scheme and hand-painted flags and cards gave me life. Well played against two armies with giant flying monster, especially with how... Yes, it is easier dealing with the flying monsters now, the way challenges work, and the bonuses to combat resolution that infantry have. So, there's only one of the cards that has buildings in the middle. So if you don't want this wall blockage between the two armies, one of you can just stop that happening. So we both actively wanted this because we thought it would be funny, or we thought it would be cool or interesting in some way. I kind of wanted it because I thought if the enemy got everything into me at once, that could be bad times. There's some powerful fighting units, there's some faster stuff that can kind of go in ahead. There's dragon ogres, and there's loads of spells as they advance. So I would rather them have to go around the sides and take longer to get to me if they want to hit me. My opponent was probably thinking, it's limited firing lanes for the dwarf gun line. So I think we both had our reasons for wanting this blockage in the middle. But you may notice that the Toughness 10 King is actually on his own, as close as possible to the enemy. So let's go through the enemy list, which I will crack open right now. So we have got... I'll just go through it in order of the photos. We've got 3 Dragon Ogres, no Shartak, just great weapons, heavy armour. We've got some Ungor. There's 1 unit of 10 and there's 1 unit of 13. Lots of these units do have ambush ability, but they all chose not to use it for this game. So we've got some Razorgore. There are 4 individual Razorgore, 52 points each, which I think is a very strong unit for that point level. We have got, let's see, we've got 25 Gore, which I don't think is this unit. I think this is a mixed unit of, let's see, it's Gore and Ungor. So that's Primal Warherd. So it's like a mixed unit of the two. We've got, where's the Gore unit? There it is. So we've got some nasty Gore there. With Banner of Outrage. We've also got, where are the characters? Okay, so we've got lots of great Bray Shamans. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Shamans. 3 of them are regular Bray Shamans, 2 of them great. So the great ones are very expensive, level 4 and level 3. The others are all level 1. So they're all just going to have Vile Tide. And the, let's see, which one has the rerolls on it. It's the level 3, has the Hag Tree Fetish, which allows the rerolls on Vile Tide, which is obviously very nasty. So 5 sources of Viletide, who are going to go into a skirmishing Ungor unit, which is hanging out round here. I think this is the unit of 13. So, it's a skirmish unit, means it's more difficult to shoot at them. They also have some other stuff going on that means it's harder to shoot them as well. And it's also fairly easy to give them cover. So, this is going to be interesting, but the reason that the Dwarf King is out on his own is because he's toughness 10, so he is actually immune to the effects of Viletide. I think it's strength 1, is it? But it doesn't allow armor saves. But it's such low strength that it can't actually wound the Dwarf King. So, he's just happy to be out on his own, gonna go and kick some people's butts, hopefully. Everyone else is thinking about the scoring. So we've got this special feature, we've got Domination. I am able to stake a claim early for Domination by scouting my rangers up here so they can start shooting the enemy early. Gyrocopters are going to be able to do something about that as well. The Dragon Ogres have got a really long way to come and reach me. I decided not to deploy anything over there to face off with them. I'll delay having to deal with them. And Iron Drakes on the hill. If anything wants to come through this gap, then you'll get shot to death. There's also a Herdstone. And that's kind of an interesting one because there's bonuses to casting, and at the end of the game you can actually get victory points for controlling it, but it's the weird old way of controlling terrain because it was written before the match play guide. So you've got the Herdstone and some of the other terrain like the Wood Elves. I think you get victory points for controlling those at the end, but it's not controlled in the same way as the newer written rules. We've got the Thane in with the Warriors and the Runesmith because they're going to advance towards the enemy down this side. And the reason I've left that gap there is so if the enemy decide to attack the Rangers, I can then attack them in the flank with my Warriors. Gyrocopters are going to go up and start shooting at the enemy as well. These ones are just going to hassle the enemy, maybe circle around the Dragon Ogres shooting them. And I've got Burlock in with the Iron Drakes because the Rangers were scouting and he would normally go in with them. You'll see they're also in a bit more of a line than usual as well because I want to get more shots in. Dragon Ogres, very scary. And, well, this looks quite scary, doesn't it? We have a bizarre J-shape skirmisher unit full of wizards. So, the wizards are positioned apart in such a way that if they miscast and blow up, they won't drop templates on each other too easily. There is also one Ungor poking his head round the back of the unit, which means that the unit now entirely gets cover. So to shoot this unit, base is going to be -3 because one of the characters in there is -1 to hit from shooting. They're skirmishers, and they've got one guy who is like dipping his toe behind another unit, so they now get cover. So, it might be a good time to talk about my disdain for skirmishers in the old world. I think most units in the old world play the old world. Skirmishers are playing 40k or Age of Sigmar, I think. Especially ones when you add in things like teleporting around and moving twice and flying. I think it's a bit much. So if it was up to me, I would totally overhaul the skirmish system. So skirmishers are still in a square, but they can go in any direction still. I don't think that would be too broken. And maybe you could let them pivot on the spot instead of wheeling, because they're skirmishers, and that'd be their benefit. And also you keep the -1 to hit, because it's like a looser formation. You already have close order and open order, so skirmishers don't need to be this way. I think it's very silly in a game of blocks of troops, but this is what the game is, and obviously I'm using Gyrocopters, who are skirmishers, and I could do something with the Rangers skirmishy, but it's not so great for Dwarves because they get charged and they all die because they can't rank up because they're so slow. But skirmishers, a bit silly, I think. So, we have got some Viletide, which kills off some of my Rangers, but not that many of them, despite 5 instances of the spell being available. But it's still concerning they can chew through Rangers that easily. All they have to do is roll a 6 and somebody's dead. Turn 1 for me. The Rangers and the Gyrocopters take aim at the Razorgore, don't do too much. The other Gyrocopters move up next to the special feature and shoot this Razorgore, do a bit of damage. The Handgun Thane moves up, gets line of sight onto the Ungor and kills about 3 of them. So, my opponent was slightly concerned when the Thane BSB with the handgun was able to just about see the end of the unit. And because he doesn't suffer any negatives, then he's the perfect thing to shoot them. So if he'd rolled obscenely high and started whittling down these Ungor, we could be seeing naked shamans running around. But unfortunately, he only killed a few of them. And the king is just making a beeline straight towards the enemy because he just wants to get into a fight. Turn 2 for the enemy. The pigs charge into the Gyrocopters, which I can live with. And down here, the enemy are just tucking in as much as they can, hiding around this terrain and the herdstone because they don't want to be shot by the Thane again, after feeling the pain once. The Gyrocopters defeat the pigs in combat. One of them flees, and I restrain rather than following up into this one. And because it's on the enemy turn, I can then charge this one again. It flees, it goes so far that it's actually outside of my charge range, so I redirect the charge into the Ungor unit with all the shamans in, which I am very excited about. But unfortunately, the Gyrocopters don't roll very well. They do kill some Ungor with the impact hits, but do not kill any of the wizards. And then one of the wizards, who's got a load of powerful weaponry, punches the Gyrocopters and just kills them. The other two just skirt around and do some shooting. You can see they've got out of charge arc of the Dragon Ogres. Bit of shooting, not much accomplished. King walking towards the enemy still. My shooting units now, the Thunderers are going to walk towards the special feature because there's 10 of them, and unless the enemy dedicates a spell to whittling them down to 9, they can actually hold this at the end of the game currently. And the Iron Drake's just moving up, so hopefully they can shoot something through the gap at some point, but they're not too bothered. Turn 3 for the enemy. The remaining 4 Ungor park themselves in front of my warriors with the Thane BSB. And the shamans, is it shamans? Is that the plural? They dive into this unit here instead to keep themselves safe. The Razorgore continues fleeing. The other one, who's down to, I think, is it 1 wound taken? I'm not sure whether my opponent was marking taken or remaining and is hiding behind the woods. My turn 3. I decide the best thing to do is to just murder them. So, charge in, kill them, overrun. Not very far though, because they only fled. I think I charged them, but they only fled 3 inches, so I just caught them with the charge. So I wanted to get the extra movement from charging them rather than shooting them down. The Gyrocopters circle round the enemy again. More damage on the Razorgore. The King charges into this mixed unit with all the magic users in there, and in a challenge obviously kills the unit champion but loses combat, but is stubborn, so just backs up a bit. And you can see we're encircling the enemy a little bit now, which is unusual for dwarves. Turn 4 for the enemy. Dragon Ogres are now getting eager to fight, so they're getting in range to go after the Thunderers. The Razorgore continues fleeing. The pig on this side is now just running down this end. So presumably, I have to do something about this pig, because otherwise it's going to score points in domination or take points off me. So instead of going around shooting the things I really want to shoot with the Thane, I now kind of have to turn around and deal with that. Otherwise it's going to be an annoyance later on. That's not a very good picture. So, the King loses combat and is pushed back again. Into my turn 4. Turn round the Thane. Miss with both the handgun shots into the pig. Hilarious. So he's wasting his time for nothing. The Gyrocopters shoot down the other pig, so there's 1 pig down. And the King, despite killing a wizard this time, loses combat, rolls like an 11 on the leadership, flees, and is almost caught by the beastmen. But they only pursued 4 inches when they actually needed 5. So the fleeing King survives by the skin of his teeth. My thinking was I would lose combat, and even if I flee, I'll probably go between the gap here, so they can't touch me. That was my thinking in wanting to fight there in the first place. Because I'm probably not going to win combat until I get into the meat of the matter. So I'm just killing increasingly valuable wizards each turn. But because I didn't flee very far, the pursuit almost caught him. I just needed one more inch to be safe. So, into the next turn. And you can see that the enemy are not too eager to continue down here. So, there was the possibility of the mixed gore unit there charging the king, forcing him to flee again, Dragon Ogres charging the Thunderers, and then he would flee and they would charge, they would touch him and he would explode and die. However, because I'd reformed the Thunderers last turn, there was no way that the Dragon Ogres could reach them, so it was an undeclarable charge, so they couldn't do it. So this unit decided not to chase the king away, and they're just going to turn around. Because if they chase him away, they definitely can't kill him. They know that the king has blood in his nostrils, and he wants to get stuck in and kill some more wizards. So that actually gives them a much better chance of killing him if he ultimately comes back and fights at some point. So maybe that's the thinking there. Turn 5 for me. I do kill the pig this time, but the time has been wasted. I also pop out the shaman at the runesmith, because all the shaman units are on the other side of this building, and he's now in range to dispel some of them. So he gets a bit closer. With the Dragon Ogres moving towards me, I now get the Gyrocopters in to shoot them, and shoot them with the Thunderers. The king is now just holding this area, waiting to see if he gets charged by someone, which he wouldn't mind. Turn 6 for the enemy. So, going into turn 6, this is a situation. I hold this area. I hold... maybe the enemy hold this with Dragon Ogres. The enemy have got this one. I hold these two currently. So, Domination, I'm quite happy with. Special feature, I'm happy with, kind of, because I've got these guys here holding it right now. The Razor Gore continues to flee, but has not quite reached the edge. I think it needed like 2 more inches to get to the edge, but it's just going to end the game fleeing. And they do not charge into the king, but the Dragon Ogres do charge the Thunderers. And Viletide takes out some Iron Drakes, so there's going to be some points for them now, because they're down to 4 models. And you'll see what I was doing in the last turn here. It's such a difficult thing to do in Old World, but what I'm trying to do is position the Iron Drakes so that if the Thunderers are killed, then the overrun will not take the Dragon Ogres into the Iron Drakes. But because the pursuit and the direction of flight and all that nonsense exists, if any of the Thunderers are still alive, it completely changes the whole thing. So if, for example, there's 2 left, the direction of flight would be that way, because this game is weird, which would mean maybe they would end up hitting the Iron Drakes. But I'm just banking on the Dragon Ogres killing all the Thunderers and then overrunning in this line here. That's the only thing you can really be certain of. If there's any of the Thunderers left, it could be anywhere. They could end up anywhere, depending how many's left. So you can't really account for that. That's why Chaff has a more limited role in the Old World than in some other games, because the enemy can overrun through Chaff and cover a huge distance and then counters charging whatever they touch the next turn. So that's something in the rules I would look at tweaking as well, possibly, if I was in charge. Which I never will be. Christian says, next game 1, fleeing Razor Gore will join the battle 1 table over. Yes. Okay, so the Thunderers do flee, with 4 left, meaning the Dragon Ogres do get into the flank of the Iron Drakes. And the Thunderers are going to survive, possibly, though. Then, we're going into my last turn. So what can I do? I'm going to spread out my units and try and maximise my domination score. Then, the king is going to, because he's a skirmisher, he's going to charge into the Dragon Ogres. Gyrocopters can choose whether to charge the Dragon Ogres. They could shoot this wizard that's hanging out in this table section to deny me a maximum domination score, or they can shoot the Razor Gore, because it's not going to leave the table, so it would get me a few more points if I shot it, like another 25 points. So, my turn 6. The king charges in, I do kill a Dragon Ogre, push them back a bit. Lose Burlock Daminson, unfortunately. And the Gyrocopters do manage to shoot down the pig as well up there. So, I have a total monopoly on this table section here. My opponent has a monopoly on this section. I own this section with an enemy unit in there, so I have double, so I get like 150 points for this one. I also have this section here, because I've got a higher unit strength in there than the Dragon Ogres, with all these guys in here. So, I've got a good score on the domination. My opponent has the special feature and the Herdstone. And in terms of kills, what has actually died? A loads of Razor Gore, some partial kills on the Iron Drakes and the Thunderers, but not much. I've lost Burlock Daminson, I've killed a few Wizards, I've killed some Ungor. So, we have to go to the maths. And so, it becomes apparent that the Beastmen are going to have more points, but will they have 300 more points, which is what you need to win? Well, we're furiously calculating, make sure we haven't missed anything, no bonuses, no secret objectives that we didn't achieve. My secret objective was to dispel 3 spells in a single turn. I thought this was the best chance to use that one because there were 5 enemy wizards that are all, well, some of them are quite low level. So there's a reasonable chance I'll be able to dispel more than 1 in a turn with my Runesmith. And I actually rolled really well and dispelled 2 spells. My opponent had 1 Viletide left, rolled and failed to cast it. So, had my opponent rolled like an extra 2 on the dice, that would put it in the zone of just being cast, but also in the possible I can dispel this and get my secret objective zone. But unfortunately, it didn't cast, so I couldn't get my secret objective. And my opponent won by, remember it has to be 300 points to get a win, 354 points. So, I needed 55 more points to make it a draw. So, had Burlock Daminson not died, it would have been a draw. Had I dispelled a Viletide that failed to cast instead of it failing to cast, it would have been a draw. Had I killed 1 extra enemy wizard, it would have been a draw. Had 2 more Iron Drakes survived, it would have been a draw. Had, let's see, anything else? No, there's no points for the Thunderers because there's only 4 of them out of 10. So all those tiny little things could have turned it into a draw, quite possibly. But alas, it was a very, very small loss instead. So with that, 11-9 loss. I'll take that though, against the Overnight Leader. Let's see some pictures of the army. So, we've got some dwarves, which obviously we're very happy to see. And I think some of these are they Highland miniatures, these ones? Because I'm sure I've seen these ones a lot. The, like, knockoff dwarves that people 3D print. And then we've got some genuine gyrocopters there. Very stylish, very green. Always going to rate people's beard work. So the beards on these ones are a bit more, not as bright and vibrant as mine. Not everyone goes for the crazy bright colours. These are a bit more dulled down. Very stylish hair on that one. Is that Gyro Bomber carrying a cannon by chains? That's quite hilarious. Then we have got some horrible, horrible undead. Some vampire counts, it would appear, with a bit of a Bretonnian twist. We've got some dark elves that are very stylish, looking a bit Cathayan, potentially, these dark elves. We have got those beastmen, those pesky beastmen that I just had that very narrow loss to. Then we've got one of the more impressive armies here, Cathay, with a balloon that's been converted seemingly to make it even taller and larger, which is a bold move because it's already massive. We've got this, I don't know which sentinel it's representing, but it's a Mega Gargant, heavily converted and very stylishly painted. Someone who's clearly a bit of an artist there. Very nice indeed. We've got some regular Cathay models. I think the infantry maybe, not 100% sure, and then there's some very nice conversions in there as well. I think this one ended up winning the coolest army award. We've got some very nice orcs and goblins, and this came very close to getting one of my votes, just for having snotlings in there. But this is a very nicely done army as well. Very stylish, very goblin-y. More dwarves that you've probably seen many a time, including Burlock. Now, the lenses on this Burlock are very impressive. From a distance, they might look kind of the same as mine, but if you get closer, I think these ones are a little bit more advanced paintwork on these lenses than mine. There's also a bit of work on the rune on the weapon there. Very nice. Shieldbearers, Gyrocopters, fairly similar to my list, but this one is Expeditionary Force. These will be Scout Gyrocopters. Then we've got the delightful Bretonnians, who are looking a little bit evil, has to be said. Very evil looking Bretonnians. Got some Skaven with a nice screaming bell situation there. We have got some Bretonnians. Now, the paintwork on this guy, I should have taken a video really, but there was UV paint used on it, so there was a light pointing at him, which is why the colours look so weird and funky here. So I should have done a video so you could get the proper effect. But individual heraldry on the knights, which obviously gets bonus points from me. A lot of effort gone into this army, very nicely painted indeed. Always a big fan of Bretonnians. Then we have got what would appear to be... Is that Vampire Counts as well? We've got some Bargeists there. So this looks like some Vampire Count action. We've got some more Beastmen. We have got the Undead Bretonnians, which we've already seen. We have got some Chaos with a very nice grotesque cabbage train there. Nice masks on these Chaos Warriors. Then, what about this for Bretonnians? I don't think my pictures are going to do it justice, but you can probably find pictures of this army out there somewhere. But again, individual heraldry on the knights, all different kinds of colours, very stylish, top-notch highlighting going on. Banners, looks like a lot of freehand. Like the highlighting on like the musical instrument there, very nice, good skin tones, very cool army. Even the archers, the highlights that have gone into them, very impressive. Very nice indeed. One of those aspirational armies where you think, if I could paint something with that kind of... Like when you look really close, you think, it's just a white dot. But then when you pull back a little bit, then have I got a wider shot of that one? Yeah, the further you are, up to a certain point, but even when you go really close on these, detail, still very nice. But when you go in really close, you can start to see the tricks. You can see where the white dots go that make everything else come together. So you can start trying to take lessons from that and think, I just need to learn to add white dots. Occasionally I'll see an army on Facebook that someone's posted where it's someone who's not far into their painting journey that's attempting the old white dot situation and they haven't quite pulled it off. But you can tell that in a few years they're going to be top notch because they're already attempting the old white dot technique. Then we've got the Chaos Warriors that I faced in round 1. Christian says, beautiful armies all over. Yes, very high hobby standard at this event, which everyone was in agreement on. We have some Cathay. Very stylish. Are there any actual Cathayan models in this one? There's no balloon, so I think they're all custom prints rather than the actual Cathayans, but you've seen me face this army before. Very cool, very stylish. More Beastmen with 2... Are they Cygors or Gorgons? One of each, is it? We've got some chariots. Very cool. Big monsters. Can't argue with that. I definitely need to get the focus down on this new camera, don't I? Okay, final game. Up against more Bretonnians. So let's crack open that list, shall we? And where's that hiding? There we go. So let's have a look at the enemy forces. There's the cabbage train in the left, on the left corner there. We've got 3 Pegasus, Royal Pegasus heroes. We've got a Duke, we've got a Paladin, and we've got a Prophetess, which is that one there. So the 3 heroes, which are the ones on the square bases. The Paladin is the BSB with the flag, and this one is the Duke. So this might be one of those rare occasions when I can actually tell apart all the very similar characters, because one's got a flag, one's clearly the wizard, one is the Duke. So the Duke has, let's see, Great Gromril Helm, Healing Potion, Syrian's Locket, Virtue of Heroism. So there is potentially some Killing Blow coming from this one. We've got the Paladin, who has Virtue of Knightly Temper. Prophetess is level 3 with Battle Magic, Lore Familiar, Power Scroll. They are in a unit of Pegasus Knights, 5 of them, with the Banner of... how do you even pronounce that? Banner of Chalons? Someone let me know. Anyway, that's the banner that means you can't stand and shoot against them, which is great against my army. So they've been put into this Pegasus Knight Death Star. So 3 heroes, 5 regular Pegasus Knights, all together, hanging out, having a merry old time. There's unit 3 Pegasus Knights at the back there, right next to the table edge, being very brave. 3 lots of 16 Peasant Bowmen, 1 here on the left, and the others on the right there and there. So, preventing me from scouting my rangers too close to them. Then we've got 10 Mounted Knights of the Realm right there. Also being quite bold and close to the table edge. So, I've scouted my rangers up onto this hill so I can shoot down those peasants. You'll notice we have got a special feature in the middle, and we've got secondary objectives here. Strategic locations, if you will. 4 of them, so lots of points up for grabs there. And there is cabbage trains, but I don't think there's domination on this one. So, what is the plan? I've got my warriors, I've got my BSB with the ward save in there, so they are going to gun for the special feature and try and hold that at the end of the game. I've got my Thunderers to be the guardians of the cabbage. I've got all my Gyrocopters on this side to hunt the enemy cabbage. I've got my King right here in case anyone wants to come in around the side of this building to go after my cabbage. The Rangers over there. During deployment, I'd only seen where the peasants went initially, and I decided to put the Iron Drakes on a flank to kind of stop the enemy putting any knights over here, any Pegasus Knights. Because I don't want the enemy to have 2 strong, flying, annoying units, 1 on each side. Because I don't think I can deal with that. If they're all coming from the same direction, that's much easier to deal with. So, the Iron Drakes are going to immediately turn around and start going this way to defend the cabbages and the special feature in the middle. So they're not going to be able to accomplish much, but considering their prime target is going to be Pegasus Knights, they can choose to just avoid the Iron Drakes anyway, because the range isn't far enough on the guns. So against flying skirmish cavalry, they would love to be able to shoot them, but they may not get the chance, if they don't want to be shot. So, turn 1 for me. The Gyrocopters hide behind the hill so they can't get charged. The King moves forward as fast as possible to get into a fight. And the warriors move up. My BSB gets a little line of sight there past the building into the Pegasus Knights, kills one of them, wounds another. So, good start there. The Rangers blast down with their crossbows, take out a few peasants, and they fall back in good order away from me, which is probably the best thing they can do under the circumstances because they don't want to get killed. So I am straight onto these 2 objectives because the Rangers are scouted up there for that reason, so they can take that and then they can turn round on this hill, start shooting anyone that comes into the middle. So this is another game where we've got 2 buildings and a strategic location in the middle. Again, there's only one of the cards that's like this, so you have to, both players actively have to allow this to happen. It's not something that just comes up naturally if you don't want it to happen. Because all the others, the buildings are not in the middle. So it's only because we both selected for this card to come up. That's the only reason it happened. So the players both have to actively choose this. And I thought it'd be nice because it would prevent the Knights and the Grail Knights, not Grail Knights, Pegasus Knights and the Knights of the Realm and everything from like combo charging whichever unit I've got on the special feature there. That was my thinking, and again, maybe the enemy are thinking it blocks firing lanes. So, Oaken Shield goes up onto the Pegasus Knights and they're going to fly off, but the Duke, on his own, lands on the hill, and he's eyeing up my king, apparently. So they want to get into a bit of a fight. And look, it's beautifully focused on a bit of the table there, but not my king. The other part of the unit decides to go up on the hill as well, but he's now left the unit, which is important because he can charge a different target to them. So they're on the hill, they're quite happy for the Gyrocopters to be able to do whatever. Knights of the Realm have moved up here as well to score this because they're a core unit. And the Knights at the back are just hiding, guarding the cabbages. So, I've got the slight advantage on scoring there, and into my turn, 2 of the Gyrocopters fly away and shoot the Pegasus Knights to no effect. The other 2 move up to the cabbages and say to the Pegasus Knights, you can charge us, or you're going to let us just go after these cabbages, are you? Charge us from less than 3 inches away. So you're not going to get their whatever fancy pants rule they have. I think they've got Furious Charge or something. The Gunthane this time shoots down some of these lowly peasant archers. Iron Drakes have turned around to start their trek towards the middle. The Rangers have angled themselves and they actually got a few shots in on the peasants, I think, as well. So they're not quite done with the peasants yet, but they might be now because they're tucked in behind the building and there's not many of them left and they didn't panic. Enemy turn, Oaken Shield goes up again, and we've got it, we've got the fight everyone wanted to see. We've got the Duke with Killing Blow versus the Toughness 10 King. So, if 1 wound gets through, and if it's a 6, the wound roll, my king is just dead immediately. If the king doesn't die, then I'm going to be able to hit back with 5 great weapon attacks with Hatred against the Duke. So, it's going to be an epic clash. I think, on average, the first round, the king survives, does a few wounds to the Duke, but doesn't kill him. And the second round, the Duke probably kills the king. I feel like, just looking at the numbers on average, that's pretty much what you'd expect to happen. However, I don't mind, because I'm not going to win the tournament, because I've only won 2 games out of 4 so far. So I just wanted an epic showdown against a character with Killing Blow. I think this is the most fun build you can have for a Dwarf King. Just give him toughness 10, send him out there on his own. If the enemy's got Killing Blow, yeah, you're inviting them. Come and fight me. See if you can roll a 6. If you can't, I'm going to chop your head off. So we shall see how that goes. The Pegasus Knights at the top, the unit 3, charge into the Gyrocopters, which, interestingly, because of the way we form up, does bring me onto the cabbages. So this actually could horribly backfire, because I wasn't on the cabbages yet. So if I somehow win this combat and push them back, I would start my turn on top of the cabbages, which would be funny, because I could immediately pillage them. All the other knights are just hiding from my Thane with the handgun, getting in a position where he can't physically turn the corner and reach them. And staying out of charge range of my king in case this goes wrong for the enemy as well. So, 1 wound done to my Gyrocopters. I don't do anything back. Go back 2 inches. Then, are you ready? King versus Duke. The Killing Blow versus the Toughness 10. First attack, rolls a 6, king is dead. Wow, wow, wow. So you get the nice drama, but the king has now been killed. So he doesn't even get to swing back with Hatred, which would have been very exciting. Now, unfortunately, he's a good chunk of points, which means the Bretonnians, there's not going to be great incentive for them to go chasing after lots of points now. Then, but maybe, because I do have the slight edge here, and they do need to win by a decent margin to actually claim any kind of win. The Gyrocopters die this time. I think they just flee off the table, actually, rather than die outright. So you can see I'm moving up towards the special feature with my warriors and Thane. Gyrocopters hiding, and they shoot down one of the Knights of the Realm with the clatter gun from there. Hiding from the Duke, though. And my powerful shooting units are not particularly in the game, but again, you're against flying Pegasus things, so even if I put them on this side, the Pegasus units could just fly over to the other side and not engage them. Now what I could do, obviously, is form more of a castle around the cabbage train, and kind of just diagonal line, maybe like that. But I don't think that's very exciting, and I think the Bretonnians would probably find a way to pick out something and kill it, and then win on objectives. So, going ultra strategic, let's see, what could we do? If we build a line there, they can still get into the flank of it. So, we would want something facing this way, the cabbage like tucked into the corner, and everyone just surrounding it, so I'm within 6 of these 2 objectives. So if the enemy want any points, they have to come towards me, because their bowmen aren't very good, they're not going to be able to shoot down a lot of dwarves, and force the enemy to come in. The problem is you're going to have 2 units of Pegasus Knights, and all the characters, potentially all hitting you at once. Would they do it though, because they're then going to be in range of all my guns, or would they just sit back and say, that's too powerful of a castle, I'm just going to sit back and accept that we both score objective points and take a draw? If I've set up too good of a castle, that's always an option. Or they'd take a small win because they'd be able to get something onto the special feature at the end. So it's a tricky one. If you want to spread out and be aggressive a bit and score points on the objectives, then you're going to get danced around by the flying stuff, especially when you're down on points and they don't have to engage so much anymore. So, enemy turn. These guys are going for my cabbage, but they do not get off Arcane Urgency, so they can't move again onto the cabbage, so they're stuck there. And Pegasus Knights, we've got archers on the hill, so we're still holding 2 objectives each. And look at all these dice piling up now for all the points we're getting. Into my turn, the Thane shoots down a couple of archers. He's having a very disappointing time actually with that handgun in this game. He's hitting just once on average each turn at the moment. Enemy Oaken Shield is up onto the Pegasus Knights again. They fly off into touch the cabbage. And they are going to take some shots, but... So, here's my issue with the Thunderers. If I was making this list in an ideal world, I think I might ditch them entirely. What would I put in instead? I don't know. But the problem with them is, in this kind of setup, now that the enemy have got round the sides, everyone is looking the same way to face them. All the Thunderers are doing is preventing the Iron Drakes getting a good shot in. And I can't go too close behind them, because they would potentially overrun through the Thunderers into the Iron Drakes, and I don't really want to be in combat with a load of knights and powerful heroes with the Iron Drakes. Even though I've got hesitation, so they wouldn't be able to use their lances against me, but even then, I think they would still just about beat me over time. So, I don't want to be too close. But the Iron Drakes are not really in the game now. Also, the Rangers probably... I should have given up trying to shoot down peasants and just positioned fully on this hill, like right on the edge here, so I can overlook the baggage train. Because as it stands, I'm going to have less shots into this unit now. Okay, into my turn 5. And I fire off everything I can into the Pegasus Knights. I think I only kill 1, though. The Thane doesn't do a particularly good job on killing them. You can see that I did get 2 hits that time. And those were my D3 rolls, so I did get quite a few hits through, but they made their ward saves. Gyrocopters are going peasant hunting with their clatterguns. By the way, one of the propellers has fallen off this gyrocopter again. I've had this copter since, I estimate, the year 2000, I think, is when I got my initial... Well, it wasn't even my initial dwarf army. I had some dwarves in like 96 as well. But I'd never had a fully painted army then. But in 2000, when I got the new dwarves, I still consider them new now, including this metal gyrocopter, this blade has fallen off. Every time I've got it out of the box, it's at risk of falling off. It's been in storage for quite a number of years, though. So I would estimate that it's fallen off like 10 times. And it's a nightmare. It's pinned and everything, but it's just not very robust, this model. So I'd recommend, if you're going to get this particular gyrocopter, it's going to be weird to say this, but I recommend you get the fine cast one if you can find it, because at least it's light and these metal propeller blades aren't going to fall off on you. They might start drooping in the heat if it's fine cast, but I would prefer that to them just falling off probably. So what I might do at some point is buy more plastic gyrocopters and just not use this one in games, which is unfortunate because I like metal models, but this particular one, it's got the combination of metal and spindly, so it's not really practical for gaming, unfortunately. Whereas these plastic ones, very easy. So I might get some more of those ones. Okay. Turn 5. And the cabbages are destroyed because I haven't shot down enough of the units. They're able to eat my cabbages, take them home. Peasants spreading out, so I can't kill them all. And I think, let's have a look. They were quite close together, so if I'd killed one of them, maybe it would panic the other, so maybe that's why they've spread out. John says, about to solder the things, maybe pin what can't be soldered. Yeah, it's very tricky. The old gyrocopter. It's solidly pinned there. Loads of super glue, painted over multiple times. There was some green stuff in there as well to like solidify the joint a bit at one stage. But unfortunately, it keeps falling off. The one time it didn't fall off is so weird. I took it all the way to America, to Adepticon, 10 years ago. And so it went on, how many planes? 5 or 6 planes it went on. And the wing did not break once during the whole trip. But take it 20 minutes down the road and it falls off. Optimus D has a question about gyrocopters. I will go into some detail about gyrocopters at the conclusion of this game because I've got a fair bit to say on them, I think. So, I have got myself positioned on the special feature. The enemy are now just hiding. So the choices were steal the cabbages, charge into my warriors with the BSB, which is risky because I've got a ward save on everybody there. So you might get stuck in combat, not do much, and then suddenly you're stuck there. If you end up losing combat even, and bounce off 2 inches, suddenly my entire army can shoot you, and it's possible you might die against all those Iron Drakes. The Iron Drakes could reform a bit before shooting you, so they could add some more to the frontage as well, which would be terrible news. The Rangers are on the hill, a lot of them will be going to be able to shoot you. The Thane, so I can understand why the choice was take the cabbage and fly away. Rolando says, nothing quite like a Sunday evening with Andy's Warhammer the Old World recap and a cup of hot cocoa. That sounds like a winning combo. My turn 6. The gyrocopters. Okay, let's go back to the wide shot to explain this one. So, because the Old World has excessive movement in it, in my opinion, things like Arcane Urgency, I would drastically tone down, actually. I would go so far as to say Arcane Urgency just lets you make a normal move rather than a march, I think would be okay. Because these knights, look how far away they are. But I'm only just touching this bit of terrain here. The enemy have to touch it they have to touch it and have higher unit strength than me to take it off me. Or they have to touch it with an equal unit strength, and that means no one gets it. So, they're so far away, but Arcane Urgency means they can just go boop, boop, move twice and get there. So I would tone down some of these movement spells. What's the other one? Steed of Shadows, I think, is a bit excessive. I think, in general, there's just too much freedom of movement in the Old World. That's one of the things I would drastically tone down to make it feel more like rank and flank mass battle war game rather than a skirmish game. But anyway, these guys can quite possibly touch this. They would have to kill, with shooting, they would have to kill one of my dwarf warriors, touch this with the knights, and that would be enough to draw on this special feature, which means I would lose out on 200 points. I am not confident that even with heavy cover, I'm not confident that I wouldn't lose any dwarf warriors at all to archers. it's very possible one of them could die from a lucky arrow. So, instead of chasing after peasants and trying to kill them, I need to stop this from happening. So what I'm going to do is move the gyrocopters down here, land them in such a way that the Knights of the Realm cannot be conveyed into a position where they're touching the terrain. So that's what I'm going to have to use the gyrocopters for. So there they are. That's going to get me 200 points, unless the enemy can make me fall back away from it with shooting, maybe, in their turn 6. So I've got the edge on scoring the strategic locations. As you can see, I've got slightly higher numbers. Some of these are only 30. I've got lots of 60s because I've been on 2 of them for the entire game. And in the enemy turn, nothing much is going to happen. A bit of shooting, kills, well, it doesn't kill, just a couple of wounds to a gyrocopter, but that's it. So, the Rangers and the Iron Drakes didn't particularly participate in the game. Same could be said for some of the Bretonnian units, didn't really participate either. The Knights of the Realm didn't have a lot to do, particularly. And the final result of the game, when we work out all the kill points, so there's not a lot of kill points. I actually score 0 kill points because I killed a load of peasants, but not enough from the same unit to actually finish one off. My opponent didn't actually score much either. 1 unit of gyrocopters and the king was it, so not a huge amount. I've got 200 for this special feature. I also have more points on the strategic locations, so purely on kill points and these objectives on the battlefield here, that is enough for a draw. However, let's not forget the cabbages. My opponent is also controlling his own cabbage, which is a very important skill to have. So, 250 for my cabbage, 100 for his own cabbage, pushes it into a 12-8 win for the Bretonnians. So that's obviously because of the 100 points bonus for killing the enemy general as well with my king. So that king was over 400 points given away there. But I wouldn't change anything about that because I think that's the most exciting thing that I've found in the old world so far is taking this toughness 10 king with no other protection on him, just his toughness 10 and a bit of armor, and going out and challenging someone that has killing blow to a fight. It worked in the other game against Bretonnians. The enemy threw several attacks at him and failed to roll a 6, and then I ultimately ended up killing that character. And this time, it swung the other way, and the first attack killed him immediately. But I do think that's a lot of fun, and I would persist running the king with the toughness 10. I think it's cool. And with the great weapon with 1 extra attack, he still actually packs a bit of punch as well. At some point I want to add a 3rd character on Shieldbearers, just because I'm getting sent over from someone in America that I purchased from them the old Throne of Power, the metal one, and that actually fits nicely onto the base that the current Shieldbearer Lord goes onto. So I'm going to use that as another one. And whether I can squeeze 3 into a list remains to be seen. But I can have the Handgun Thane on one, I can have the Toughness 10 King on another, I can have maybe a Killy character on another one. It would have to be a high point level game, I think, though, because I'm going to exceed my character allowance. Let's have a look. Where am I on character points? So for this game, okay, maybe not actually. I'm at about 800 points of characters here. So, at 2,000 points, that gives me 200 points to spend on another character. So I could get a reasonable one for that. It wouldn't be as powerful as the other ones. I could also drop a runesmith, potentially, if I felt like it. I could also tone down one of the other Shieldbearer characters. There's also the possibility of playing at higher point value events if they allow you to take more than the 1,000 point character cap, which the TSN ones generally do not. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that cap is increased for the events that give the disadvantaged factions the extra points. Because the Dwarven Mountain Holds is going to get 2,400 points to spend at the 2,000 points events. So whether the character cap goes up, I would have to find out. If not, then I would get an extra 400 points to just throw at making some of the units bigger, I think, and maybe some Maybe I could just throw in some organ guns. To be really optimal, you'd just throw in a load more gyrocopters, probably. Because they are ridiculously good. And people were asking about them. So, let's see. What do we think of gyrocopters? With the clatter guns, a unit of 2 is 140 points. They can quite easily hunt down a cabbage unless the enemy have skirmishing or random movers that they can use to guard the cabbages, in which case you're taking them out of the game because they're guarding things instead of going after your army. You have the ability to move around, march 18 inches and still shoot, which is very potent. The scout gyrocopters are better at shooting, but they're not as good in a fight because they're not as tough. So, I don't know. I would definitely try scout gyrocopters. I should try an expeditionary force list at some point to see how that goes, because I haven't done enough of the alternate sub-faction, sub-armies yet. I've mostly just run the main Dwarven list. Royal Clan, I've hesitated because I don't have any Longbeards. I've got loads of warriors that could pass for Longbeards, but I'm not that kind of guy. I want genuine Longbeards out there. And for Expeditionary Force, I could do that with what I've got. But I don't know whether I rate leaning into war machines. For example, cannons, even though they can move, I still don't think they're very good, the Dwarven ones. You can put the Expeditionary Marksmen on certain units that mean they can avoid taking a penalty for moving, which is really good on, like, Thunderers. So maybe I'll give them a try as well. So I could use the scout gyrocopters in a list. I do definitely want to buy more, not necessarily because I want to spam them, just because I want to replace this one in the army, because it's too difficult, too impractical for gaming purposes, so it'll probably just sit on the shelf mostly. So maybe if I get another pack of 2, I think they come in 2s now, then I could have one to replace this one, and then another one just running around on its own maybe. More gyrocopters is never bad. In an ideal list, you probably want to take nothing but them, because they can hide easily. It's an 18-inch move in any direction, and still being able to shoot is very powerful in this game. They have fire and flee. They do impact hits on the charge, so things like lone wizards or war machines are in danger of them charging. And especially in the scoring meta with cabbages around and controlling like domination zones, then they're very strong. More so right now than they ever have been because of the changes to the scoring, because they're not that great at purely killing things. So that would have been an issue with them before, but now they can pick up points in other ways. Very strong unit. Pete says, now they have impact hits, I've been using the gyros as flying chariots, hunting chaff, war machines and lone wizards. Yeah, that's a very good role for them. And if you've got the clatter guns on them, you can march them into a good position, shoot something, and then next turn, charge whatever's standing there. They're just a really good unit. Quite cost effective. And just very good all round. Rangers, also very good. Iron Drake's very good. Those are 3 very strong units we've got access to. The characters on Shieldbearers are very good as well. The Handgun Thane, very strong. Shieldbearer is one of the best character upgrades, probably, in the old world. I think any other faction would snap your hand off to buy an upgrade to give you 3 extra wounds and some bonus attacks for 60 points. That's a bargain. Especially on a character that can be quite powerful on their own, like a Dwarf King, for example, or a BSB, giving them more wounds to keep that ward save intact with the banner. And yeah, which faction wouldn't want that? Maybe a Goblin wouldn't pay 60 points to get 3 more wounds because they're pretty measly. But imagine like a, let's see, maybe some of the factions where they can just go on a monster instead wouldn't do it. But you still remain as infantry with just loads of extra wounds. So like a Chaos Lord on foot with 3 bonus wounds sounds quite good. What do I think? Thunderers may well drop out the list, because like in this situation here, they were just blocking the Iron Drake shooting and kind of getting in the way. Obviously I could have positioned them somewhere else, but if they're away from the rest of the army, they'll just die because there's only 10 of them. They're really there as a core unit to score points, but then there's only 10, so as soon as one dies they can't even do that. So maybe they will come out of the list. And let's see, my core was already above the threshold required anyway. I could have ditched the Thunderers and still been within the core limit. I just wanted an extra unit to sit on the strategic location on the edge of my deployment zone sometimes, and hope the enemy would waste time going to kill them. So I could bring other things in. Instead of the Thunderers, I could afford 2 Doomseekers, which would be interesting. That would be fun, as a fun choice. I could tweak things a little bit for maybe an organ gun. Let's see, I can afford an organ gun still, because I'm nowhere near my rare threshold with that 1 unit of Iron Drakes. So the reason I like organ guns is not because I think they're good, it's because they have a very specific job. They have 2 specific jobs that they're quite good at. One is just locking down an area of the battlefield that the enemy are scared to walk into, the same way Iron Drakes do. But Iron Drakes maybe do it better because they can also move around a bit and can fight a little bit as well, and you can put characters in them. Organ guns just have longer range for that job, so you can shut down a bigger area if the enemy are scared of you. You also have the ability to just spin round and shoot wherever you want, so enemy skirmishers that are trying to get round your lines don't like to see organ guns, so like Pegasus Knights wouldn't want an organ gun anywhere near them. Let's say we had an organ gun just sitting in these woods here. I don't know whether those Pegasus Knights would be so bold as to just go and touch my cabbage. I think they might have to do more of an all-out assault down here with the other units as well, rather than risking being shot at by all this and an organ gun at close range. Would be extremely risky, I think. And what about if we had the extra points for dwarves, which are going to come in the square-based events, an extra 400 points. So potentially could throw in 2 organ guns, because I think that would still be within the rare limit of 2,400. And what else? Expand the size of these units, so more dwarf warriors, more rangers, probably not more Iron Drakes. I don't think they need to be bigger, they're already expensive and they're using up the rare slot obviously. And Doomseekers are always fun, so you can look forward to plenty more dwarf content, and of course Warriors of Chaos. They're not going to get too neglected either. I just need to paint some more knights before I feel confident in putting them back on the table under the new scoring climate in the matched play era that we're living in now. Let's have a look. Elmo says, thanks for the game, bud. It was good to give my undead horses a run out against you. Those undead horses certainly were put to the test. And I'm not even going to be able to scroll back far enough to see those right now. So, yeah, very stylish undead horses. And it seems to be a thing, actually. You'll see undead models run as Bretonnia. You'll see Bretonnian models run as undead. There is quite a bit of crossover there. What's the deal with that? Is there something the Bretonnia are hiding, perhaps? Are they all secretly vampires? All the Bretonnian lords, that wine they're drinking, those fine wines, are actually the blood of the peasant class. Well, they're maybe not literally drinking that, but I'm sure they are, kind of metaphorically, at the very least. Pete says, if you made the Thunderers bigger by dropping the Warriors and use them as a frontline unit, you could put the BSB in them. Burlock's reroll for 1s applies to the magical handgun. Is that so? That would be pretty wild. I'm going to have to look at the wording for that now. Let's have a look. Let's see where we go. Okay, range finding optics. A friendly unit of Quarrelers, Thunderers, or a Dwarf War Machine that is within his command range can re-roll hits of a natural 1 or an artillery dice. I don't know if it's 100% clear from that wording, because I mean, they are technically part of the unit, but they're not a Thunderer or a Quarreler. That would be an interesting one, because if it does apply, that would be a pretty cool combo to try out, actually. That would make it even more likely to hit. Definitely worth a try then, if that's valid. Yeah, that could be worth a go. I do have more Thunderers. I think I've got 16 Dwarfs with handguns available to me. So I could make a bigger unit of those. And to be more of a frontline unit, they could be armed with great weapons as well, Thunderers. Let me see what options they can take. Thunderers. So they can have shields and great weapons. They can have a full command. So I don't think you can give them a magic standard, a runic standard. You can't, but obviously the BSB could go in there. Yes, could be interesting. I have run Thunderers with great weapons in the past, I think. So, could be something to ponder there. Yeah, you do lose out the weapon skill versus Rangers and Dwarf Warriors. But Dwarf Warriors, the issue with them is that the enemy have to choose to fight you. And if you put a killer character in there, they can easily avoid you. Situations like this, it's okay because they're scoring me points, but we want them to be accomplishing things as well. Also, even though I don't really rate War Machines as a competitive choice, in a game like this, would it have been handy to have like a couple of grudge throwers? Where the enemy are hiding, you want to just lob a couple of rocks, land on a Pegasus Knight now and then, kill one of them, maybe get lucky and kill a unit, force them to engage you a bit more. So maybe with those extra 400 points, maybe I could bring in something like a grudge thrower. Something to think about, and I've got lots of space left in the special section of my list anyway, because in this list I've only got the 2 units of 2 gyrocopters in there, so loads of space in there. Lots to consider anyway. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see from a Dwarven list going forward, and I'll let you know if that's viable for me. When is the next Old World event? Let's have a look at the events calendar here. Is there another one that I'm signed up for? There is one in November, 2,600 points. So that's very likely to be Dwarves again, because I don't think my Chaos Warriors stretch to 2,600 very comfortably. Not competitively, I don't think. So it's probably going to be Dwarves there. And before that, we've got Age of Sigmar and Star Wars Shatterpoint. And then after that, we've got Dead Zone planned. And all the rest of the TSN events. That's where obviously I attend all my Age of Sigmar, Shatterpoint and Old World events, most of them. All those events are apparently going up soon, so I'll have to get my tickets for the next few months of events as well. Right, thanks for tuning in everybody to this 2-hour, 17-minute live stream on the eve of the event. I managed to finish in 10th place in the end out of, how many was it? Let's see. I feel like it was about 22 players. Let's have a look. So, weirdly, yeah, 22. In the last game, I was against the player who was placed second in the table. And at the time, I was in 8th, which you may think is a bizarre thing that should never happen. But the reason it happened is because at the TSN, there are no duplicate matchups. You can't play the same person twice. So we ended up in a situation where the table, the top of the table, a lot of those players had already played each other. There were too many duplicates. So you had to keep going down the table until you find someone that they haven't played yet. And then that might mean that the next person can't find anyone either, so they have to go even further down. And just to get it so that everyone's as close as possible to someone, to their position, sometimes you'll have a couple of people that are a bit further apart than you would expect. So that led to quite a tough final game, I think. I think finishing 10th is quite respectable. Obviously, if I was sneaky and devious, then I could have been going into day 2 on 3 wins. Well, I technically was, until I corrected the maths from game 3. But you don't want to win a game because it was calculated incorrectly. And if the evidence is right there in front of you, so you can physically just work it out and get it right, I would rather do that. Obviously, a lot of games are going to be scored incorrectly, especially when they're that close. And most people don't have extensive photographic evidence of the games that they can go back and analyse and make sure that the score was right. So incorrect results will slip through from time to time. But not on my watch, damn it. Rolando says, thanks, I'm going to watch this from the beginning as I was late to the stream. I should hope so too. So don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Obviously, don't forget to check out all the links in the description, including the various social media shenanigans. There's a Twitter link, Facebook group, Discord, and all that good stuff. And obviously, if you want me to buy loads of tournament tickets and just keep attending tournaments and reporting on them extensively, and the various ups and downs and roller coaster ride of the Dwarves, then why not pledge your entire life savings to the PayPal or Patreon links down there as well? Because what were you going to do with it anyway? You're probably going to fritter it away buying Warhammer stuff when you could just be giving me all your money so I can attend events with it instead. I think that would be a much better use of everyone's life savings, personally. But I might be biased. And before I go, let's see, Pete says, did you like Burlock in the Iron Drakes? At times, I liked him in there. I ran him in a few different units. I don't know if I put him in the Thunderers at this event. Usually, if the Rangers are scouting, I'll put him in the Iron Drakes, just to give him somewhere to go. And the Iron Drakes, usually the only negative they're suffering, quite often anyway, is the long range -1. Because obviously they don't care about moving. So having him in there does actually help that. And it gives them a little character to fight with as well. I don't think I ever mentioned, by the way, the only time in this event that Burlock got to fight anyone in close combat was in... was it in game 1 or 2? It was very early in the event. And he did actually get to fight, and I rolled a strength 10 both times. And he actually did some decent damage. So I think I forgot to mention it because it was just caught up in the blur of the whirlwind of combat. But Burlock was actually pretty good at this event, even though his death did cause me to lose in round 4, you could argue, since that tipped it over the threshold. Right, thanks for watching, and all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.